Derby Wars, racing's biggest contest site, is now even bigger with more than 200 games every day. Check out Survivor, Derby Wars' hottest new game. It's fun, easy to play, and for just $4 you could win $1,000. Just pick a horse to finish first, second, or third and advance to the next race. With daily payouts and games starting every hour, you'll see why fans are racing to play Survivor.
Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsey, and as always, I have the great pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm great, Brian. And Brian, before we start going through the Breeders' Cup races, I just want to say that you and I both were so thrilled by the number of HorseCenter fans that we got to meet at Santa Anita. We met him in the gift shop. We met him in the paddock. We met him in the grandstand. I just want to say for Brian and I, thank you, all of you, for saying hello and introducing yourselves, and thank you for watching the show. We really appreciate it.
That's true, Matt. It was nice to meet all of the fans of horse racing out there that took the time to say hello. But Matt, we got to get into the races. That's what people really want to talk about here. Friday started the two-day extravaganza, and we had 4 Breeders' Cup races. New Money Honey and Oscar Performance looked like talented young turf horses going in, and they did not disappoint. Big future turf stars, both of them. They look good.
Yeah, they certainly did, Brian. The juvenile turf races are always exciting and wide open, and Oscar Performance lived up to his billing, and New Money Honey looked really good too.
Yeah, two young turf horses to keep track of. And Matt, the Americans beat the Euros in the 2-year-old races. That was nice to see on the turf. Tamarcuz ended his career with his biggest win of his life. A former Godolphin Mile winner, hadn't won since. A year and a half later, an impressive run by Gun Runner. Little disappointing for Dortmund and Run Happy, though.
Yeah, and it was the win of Tamarcuz's career, one of the B-string horses for Kieran McLaughlin, but a great win. Yeah, Dortmund was very, very disappointing. Never looked like he had a chance when the running was supposed to start happening. And Gun Runner keeps getting a check, but boy, if he didn't win in that spot, that was a little disappointing.
True. Those are the 3 co-features of the day, but the feature, the big one, the distaff, that's the one that everybody wants to talk about still, Matt. I have a feeling we'll be talking about this race for years to come. Stellar Wind broke a little bad. She tried to make up some ground, but could only finish 4th. Forever Unbridled ran a very good race, a rallying race, our top long shot in the race. But of course, it came down to 2 great champions. Beholder's on the verge of becoming a 4-time champion, and Songbird, the undefeated 2-year-old filly champion of last year. She will, of course, be 3-year-old filly champion of this year. She went down to defeat for the first time ever in her 12-race career, Matt, but I think she's only gained more respect in the way that the race was run.
Yeah, without question, Brian. Defeat by the narrowest of margins, a very slight nose, a whisker on the wire. It was a great race. The 2 of them had perfect trips. Songbird got out on the lead, doing just what she wanted, nice and relaxed. Beholder was on the outside. That's what Gary Stevens has been wanting for the last 3 races. They got it, and Beholder made her move coming around the turn. It looked like Songbird had repelled Beholder, but with age comes that determination and that grit and that experience to fight to the wire. And Brian, I think that's all that it was that got Beholder just up to win the distaff, and a wonderful race.
Nice recap, Matt, but I'm going to poo-poo one thing you said. With age in these fillies, these mares, usually the determined to run that hard kind of wanes a little bit. And for Beholder, 5 wonderful seasons on the racetrack, the 6-year-old mare, to dig down so deeply in what we now know will be her swan song from racing, to go get Songbird, who was still running. And frankly, Songbird did have the race the way she wanted. I think she was on the rail, she was on the lead, and she wasn't pressured that much for Beholder to go get her. She was in good position throughout the race under Gary Stevens, but she had to get her. Frankly, as close as that finish was, the last 100 yards, I think there can be little doubt that Beholder was just that much better than Songbird. She inched and inched her in and then finally inched by her. It was a very close photo, but Beholder, I think, deserved the win. What a way to go out. 5 seasons, Matt. If she didn't get sick a few years ago, she would have been a 5-time champion. Let that sink in. And again, for a 6-year-old mare to still show the want and determination to do what she did Friday afternoon at Santa Anita Park in an epic Breeders' Cup distaff, I think Beholder deserves all the accolades we could possibly put on her. Songbird, though, the career of Songbird is still moving forward. Even with this first loss, Matt, I think we saw just how good Songbird is. I would love to see Songbird try new and more exciting things next year, perhaps as soon as the Pegasus Cup in January. We now know that Songbird is better than just much the best of the 3-year-old fillies. She can compete with anybody in the country.
She certainly showed that, and Songbird, I think, is going to just take a little bit of time off, not a lot, rest up for a month or so, and going to just continue on in training. And yeah, Brian, I hope that we see some interesting things from Songbird, not just racing against and dominating in the older filly and mare division.
She can do anything she wants, of course. She's fantastic. But yeah, maybe a race against the males sooner than later. That would be nice, Matt. So as good as Friday was, as good as Friday ended, we go to Saturday for 9 more Breeders' Cup races, Matt. Champagne Room got things started with a big upset. She was about 33-1 in the juvenile fillies. I think it leaves this division a little bit wide open still. But on this day, Champagne Room was best.
And I know, Brian, you and I said in the last show that the juvenile filly division isn't particularly strong in terms of anybody standing on top of the division. So it kind of figured that maybe a big bomb could come in that race. And Champagne Room was certainly that horse at 33-1. Didn't come out particularly fast, earned a low buyer speed figure. So it'll be interesting to see how that division plays out. Baffert horse, American Gal, had a wide trip going around and finished well. So that horse probably could get better in next year's 3-year-old races.
And I hope fans of HorseCenter were listening last week. Of course, I said Champagne Room was one of the live long shots. I hope that turned out well. It turned out very well for me, so it was nice to see some monetary returns from Champagne Room. Both Valadorna and American Gal very lightly raced, and both ran impressive races. They are certainly 2 to look forward to, but Champagne Room very well may have won herself a championship on Saturday. Obviously, finally got the job done, Matt. This was his 5th try. Of course, it was his first try in the turf sprint after 4 tries in the Breeders' Cup Mile to wire them, but he found 6.5 furlongs to his liking and held off Ohm. Obviously, 5th time's a charm.
Yeah, it was 2 California horses who had been going a little bit longer in distance on their home Santa Anita track, and obviously just got on the lead and kept going, and it wasn't much of a race. Finest City was the California filly. I got to be honest, I wasn't crazy for the Californians in the filly and mare sprint. I'm still not crazy for the overall group as a whole. Finest City's probably a champion as well with 1 other stakes win. I would have loved to see Carolina in this race. I think she would have won this race if they had gone this way. But Finest City gets the win in the filly and mare sprint. Yep. Again, it was another one of those wide open divisions it wasn't surprising that the winner was a little bit of a surprise. Matt, those are the co-features again, but there were so many huge races on Saturday, and of course, none bigger than the last one, the Classic. My boy Frosted ran his 2nd disappointing Breeders' Cup Classic in a row. He's off to stud duty. Darley at Jonah Bell Farm. Sorry for everyone that I led astray with my
favoritism of Frosted. I thought that he would run a better race, but of course, the two favorites ran huge, Matt. California Chrome was beaten. 5-year-old, likely horse of the year in my eyes still, was beaten by the up-and-coming superstar. Arrogate did it in the Travers, and he ran every bit as well on Saturday to run down California Chrome late in a really good classic.
Yep, and I agree, Brian. I think that California Chrome will still get Horse of the Year. Arrogate will get 3-year-old male championship at the Eclipse Awards. You know, Brian, the talk after the race was, and Art Sherman himself said it, that California Chrome was off on an easy lead and coasting his way around the track, and a lot of people feel like coming around the turn that Victor should have been setting California Chrome down, getting going faster and extending the lead. You heard Mike Smith after the race talking about how he got the best of Victor Espinoza there, because when Victor looked back, Mike Smith had moved to the other side, and then he looked the other way, and Mike Smith had moved to the other side. And by the time all that gamesmanship by the jockeys was over, Arrogate had gotten the jump on California Chrome.
Again, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, Matt, there. I think Arrogate was reeling him in at that point and getting himself in perfect position. California Chrome certainly ran a big first half of the stretch. Victor Espinoza did do something that I don't like. He kept looking over his shoulder, which doesn't help his horse. I don't think it changed the outcome of this race. I think on this day, Arrogate was just a little bit better. But certainly for the stretch run, California Chrome had every chance to win it. Arrogate just looks like a true distance horse whose ability at 10 furlongs and probably even longer. I remember Baffert saying early this year, in fact, still in the spring, when very few were talking about Arrogate, he had never been in a stakes race, that if he had gotten him ready, or if he was ready to go just a little bit earlier, this would have been his Belmont horse. That statement is looking prophetic now, because this is a true distance horse. And it wasn't until really the last 75 yards or so where Arrogate just kicked it in and powered by Chrome. Chrome, I thought, ran his race, and he ran a very good race. In fact, I think he ran one of the best races of his career. You can look at how far back a lot of really good horses were behind the top two. It was just a classic, no pun intended, a classic matchup in the classic, and the young, this time youth, was served. Arrogate looks like the real deal, and we can't wait to see him race at 4 again. They have some interesting options on the table for Arrogate next year, but it looks like it's all going to start again in January, where these two meet up in the $12 million Pegasus Cup. That's exciting, Matt.
It sure is. And that's what both camps say, is that they're looking for the Pegasus World Cup, which is run at 1 1/8 miles. So yeah, that'll be a heck of a way to start 2017.
There you go, Matt. What a way to start 2017. Maybe advantage California Chrome at 9 furlongs, but we'll see. We still don't know how good Arrogate is. The amount he has come in a short amount of time is pretty incredible. Matt, speaking coming a long way in a short amount of time, I think we have some really good 2-year-olds. Both of us kind of forecast that the Kentucky 2-year-olds this year were the ones. I visited both Classic Empire and Not This Time in the last month or two, and talked to their trainers about these horses. Kentucky has the best 2-year-olds. We said it before, and it sure played out that way in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, with, again, Classic Empire and Not This Time just far and away, far ahead of the rest of the field in the Juvenile. Going forward, we got to start talking Kentucky Derby with these two.
Yes, Brian, and they both look like horses that will develop and will handle the longer distances that they'll be facing on the Derby trail. So two likely favorites, with Classic Empire being number 1 right now, heading into 2017.
I'll reverse that order still. Not This Time, I think, might be the more interesting horse at 10 furlongs. I like the way he was finishing the race. Classic Empire ran huge, a very deserving champion. He didn't lose a race where he kept the rider throughout the race, and just a number of good races at Churchill Downs too. He was part of a pace that was reasonable, and he opened up a little bit in the stretch. Not this time, though. Was really running at the end of this race and going from 1.16 to 1.25 miles in 6 months. Look out for Not This Time. There's a couple good late developers out there. I'm thinking about Tackleful on the East Coast for Albertrani, and Ian Wilkes has McCracken also in Kentucky Churchill Downs. It looks like it's going to be a very interesting road to the Kentucky Derby. And generally, I don't think that the Breeders' Cup Juvenile is the best race for the Kentucky Derby moving forward. But this year, I feel differently.
Yeah, and Brian, in the last 2 or 3 years, the trend has been that some new horses that we haven't even seen appear at the end of this year and at the beginning of next year that are serious contenders for the Derby. So it's great to have those two and the young ones that we mentioned, but no doubt there'll be some others appearing.
Exciting times, Matt. We look forward to the Derby already. One of the horses we've been looking forward to running the last few years, though, is Tepin. And Matt, we talked a lot about Songbird and how well she did for herself in defeat in the distaff. But looking back at the replay, watching it live, I thought the same thing. But looking back at the replay even more so, Tepin just ran a terrific race, losing to Tourist by half a length. As I look at this race, I try not to look at it with biased eyes at all, Matt, but I can't come away saying anything but a wide Tepin, a late running Tepin, which is against her running style to some extent, was the best horse in the Breeders' Cup Mile in an attempt to win 2 in a row.
And Brian and Tourist got an absolutely perfect trip, ground saving along the rail. And when it looked like he was going to run into some traffic right at the end with a fading, tiring horse, he just slipped right by and got an early run. But I agree, Brian, Tepin made a terrific closing effort.
Yeah, Matt, we shouldn't take anything away from Tourist. He's been a very nice turf horse since the beginning of his career. He's run a lot of good races. I don't think he's quite as good as Tepin. I think that probably has been proven before, and he did. Now, racing luck is part of the story in racing. It always has been and always will be. Jockeys' rides are always part of the story. Tourist won the Breeders' Cup Mile fair and square. But yeah, if you look at those two trips, it's hard not to like what Tepin did. Tepin, just a terrific turf miler for a few years now. I think she's going to win her second Eclipse Award for filly and mare turf division. And the good news came from the Cassie barn that Tepin will be back for a 6-year-old season, much like Beholder came back. So we have Tepin to look forward to next year.
Yep, that's excellent news.
It is. Tepin, a very good loser to Tourist in the Breeders' Cup Mile. Congratulations to Tourist. Filly and mare turf, Matt, I could say much the same that I just said about Tepin. Now, Queen's Trust is pretty lightly raced 3-year-old from Europe, but it was clear in her last several races how good she was getting. She wasn't winning, but she was running against the best mares in Europe recently and doing very well for herself. Now she comes over with a very late run. She got up in the final jump to beat one of our favorites, Lady Eli. Lady Eli, who had really kicked it in the stretch to get that Mandela runner late. And then, of course, Queen's Trust nipped her on the wire. Another great race. We would have liked to see Lady Eli, but we have to give a lot of credit to Queen's Trust.
Yep, absolutely. And again, Lady Eli didn't get the best of trips. She didn't get a bad trip either. She was, running along the rail in a lot of traffic and had to pick her way through, which she did pretty successfully. But, a little bit of delay in that trip might have cost her the race.
Yeah, I didn't see it, Matt. I thought she got when she wanted to. I think they were looking to rally like they did, and she just got barely beaten by a horse who was moving just a little bit faster at the end. Two really terrific horses. Queen's Trust, again, only a 3-year-old. Queen's Trust will be a powerful horse if she comes back next year. But the real good news for American race fans, again, Lady Eli has been taken out of the sale. Sheep Pond Partners will not sell her this week at Keeneland. So we get to see Lady Eli. Matt, she survived laminitis. She was the best 2-year-old turf filly a few years ago. She was the best 3-year-old turf filly last year. She survived near-death disease. and she's come back terrific. A nice winner of the Grade 1 Flower Ball, and she ran her eyeballs out again, as she always does in the Filly Mare Turf, which was extra nice to see, even if she got beat in those.
Yep, she's on her way to Florida for the winter, take a little time off, and get running down at Gulfstream.
So we saw some terrific racing involving fillies and mares. We talked about Tepin. We talked about Lady Eli, Queen's Trust. But I think the best turf performance of the weekend had to be what Highland Reel did in the turf. Going in, just about all of us assumed that Highland Reel, Found, and Flintshire were the best three horses going into the Breeders' Cup Turf. They proved it by running 1, 2, 3, but it was rather easy for Highland Reel, who controlled the pace. He ran some leisurely quarters, but he ran some faster quarters along the way. And what he did on the backstretch, opening up that lead, was decisive. And I can't say anything after the Breeders' Cup Turf other than Highland Reel, a true globetrotter who's run all over the world, literally, was the best horse.
Yeah, Brian had control of the race every step of the way, hustled out of the gate to run the way they had planned, big lead, held on, and like you said, what a horse, has won big Grade 1 races all over the world, in Hong Kong, in the U.S., in England. An amazing, amazing turf horse for Aidan O'Brien, and Found ran respectably to get up for third after her third big race in the last month after winning the Arc.
Yeah, Found was really running late after getting through. Flintshire, I thought, had a better opportunity. And if you look at it, the initial reaction after the race was Flintshire was really gaining on Highland Reel, and he may have a little bit, but looking back at the last 100 yards, Flintshire wasn't really gaining on Highland Reel. Highland Reel just proved best on this day. Flintshire, I think, retains, I don't know about you, Matt, but in my eyes, retains the Eclipse Award. 5 very good races in America, 3 wins, and then 2 seconds. Highland Reel ran in America once this year, and it was a powerhouse performance. Any thoughts on that Eclipse Award?
Yeah, I feel the same way, Brian. One race in North America for me is not enough, although in the past it has been enough. So it'll be interesting to see what the voters do.
It will be interesting, and I think most years that happens, we don't have such a strong candidate as Flintshire proved this year in his 5 races. So we'll see. And Matt, another Eclipse Award, I think that was won on the track on Saturday, was in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Drefang, we've known since the 2-year-old year that he was a very, very talented colt for trainer Bob Baffert. He really proved something to us all when he went across country, won the 7-furlong Grade 1 King's Bishop in impressive style. He did it again on Saturday, winning the Breeders' Cup Sprint rather easily over horses like Masochistic and AP Indian. Mind Your Biscuits, the long shot, rallied nicely to just miss second. But Drefang was best, and Baffert now has 2 sprinters this year that ended the season, or as of now, are 4 for 4 on the year. It's a shame Lord Nelson wasn't in the race.
Yeah, I agree, Brian. It is a shame that Lord Nelson wasn't in the race, but Drefang, just like his stablemate Arrogate did, went to Saratoga, ran a bang-up race, and then backed it up in the Breeders' Cup.
Absolutely, and I think that's enough to surpass Lord Nelson and AP Indian as the sprinter of the year, Drefang. All right, folks, that's our wrap-up show. Matt and I got back from California. We had a wonderful time out there. Again, thank you. We always appreciate when you come up to us and say hello and tell us that you enjoy HorseCenter. We do it for the fans, week in, week out. Thank you to our wonderful sponsor, Derby Wars, the best contest site out there, for sponsoring the show. Matt and I will be running through. We'll do HorseCenter every week. There's still a lot to look forward to the rest of the year, things like the Clark and the Cigar Mile. And of course, we have Pegasus Talk in January and Kentucky Derby. It's never too early to talk Derby to me. Closing shots, Matt?
Yep, Brian. Breeders' Cup was absolutely terrific. I had a great time with the Horse Racing Nation gang, and we're on our way to 2017. And as always, thank you to our producer, Brett Workman.
The hitman in the house. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see you next week.